As you are well aware, power has the potential to be either very ruthless and destructive or very strengthening and liberating. Therefore, understanding power and knowing how to use it to set people free rather than to enslave them, to learn how to use power so that it gives people purpose, direction, and joy in their lives is very crucial for Christians. Power has long had a bad name in Christian circles, and there's a very good reason for that. Most Christian leaders are suspicious of power. They've been taught that Jesus was a loving, meek, and mild person. We'll discover, incidentally, later in this course that Jesus wasn't a loving, meek, and mild person. Rather, he was a person who thoroughly understood power as a positive good and used it to build a community, to train leaders, and to articulate and practice common values. But we have been taught that Jesus was a loving, mild, and meek kind of a person. And so Christian leaders see power as being inconsistent for them to use in any other way than for them to be loving, meek, and mild. They've come to that conclusion because they have experienced over and over again the misuse of power, both in their own lives and in their ministries, as they have seen power used to manipulate them, to manage people, to control situations, to gain the response that the leader wants to receive, to dominate the church. What they have failed to understand when they begin to think that power is wrong and therefore shouldn't be exercised, what they fail to realize is that when power is unacknowledged, it doesn't somehow just disappear and stop existing. It's still there. It's still there as powerfully as it has been before. But what it does is that it goes underground. So that's never spoken about, never taken into consideration, never recognized as what it is. Rather, what happens is that power moves into the corporate unconscious of a church or of a community. And if there's no longer any countervailing values or restraints coming up against it, it has the potential to become highly demonic in its capacity to destroy people and to injure institutions. That's why power becomes so distasteful to us, particularly in Christian circles, where we never talk about it. We act like it does not exist, and then we use it ruthlessly against each other, but cloak it with spiritual talk. You know, I'm doing this for your own good. I'm doing this because I love you. I'm doing this because I love Jesus. Jesus told me. These are all ways that power gets underground and becomes very demonic in its impact upon people. Therefore, I think it is very important for Christians to have a theology of power. Not simply a theology of justice, not simply a theology of social witness, not simply a theology of personal and corporate salvation. It's important for us to have a theology of power, in which power is understood within a biblical framework and can therefore be openly acknowledged and understood and can be used then to enhance the relationships between people, to define and deliver on issues of common importance, to work for justice in the world, and to build a more loving and powerful community of faith. Now, thus far in this course, we've been about the task of enabling us to articulate a biblical framework on power. In that light, we will be looking carefully at the way power was used for the next two sessions by one of the most powerful and influential individuals in the Bible, and that was Paul the Apostle. We're going to look at some examples of his use of power in our next session. But in this session, what we are going to look at is Paul's theology of power as lived out in his theology of public life and the public life of the church. That is, what is the church called to be and do in the world today? So that's what we're going to spend this session looking at, Paul's theology of public life and therefore his theology of power. In order to perceive Paul's theology of public life, however, we have to read his letters out of an understanding of how the Jewish people of Paul's day understood the world and the universe, because it was profoundly different than the way we understand the world. To Jews and Gentiles alike, at the time of Paul and at the time of Jesus, there was a significant connection in their thinking between heaven, hell, and earth, with very permeable divisions within them. It was believed that the spirit world and the physical world were closely linked, with activities and actions occurring in the spirit world, inevitably then ordaining what was to take place on the earth. If I were to diagram it, I would diagram it this way. There is the spiritual world, or heaven. There is as well the physical world. Or society, as we know it today. And to the ancient Jews and Greeks, their belief was that there was constant activity going on between those two worlds. That in essence, these two worlds were permeable. You know, another way of doing it would be to say that it was like that. All right? That it was open, and that there was movement between the spiritual world and the physical world, and this movement was going on all the time. One of the ways that this was expressed was the idea that God is at work in both worlds, and what he does in heaven will inevitably happen on earth. See, it's permeable between the two. And therefore, what has already happened here will inevitably happen. Not may, not can, not might. It will. It will happen. And there's not anything that anyone or any nation or any government or any army can do to stop it.